opinion were affected, and how viable I think they'll be on the competitive scene, competitive in quotes, because we still don't have any tournaments coming up, but maybe in the online tournament scene and all that good stuff. So first up we have ABC. I'm gonna put ABC in the tier 3. I think they're a little better than Rogue. Having double ABC is great. I've seen a lot of one card combos with, domain locks, and it's a pretty decent form of interruption. I just think they hard lose, like really hard lose to hand traps. A lot of decks do, but that's what separates tier 1 from tier 3 in Rogue, I'm gonna skip Alistair. Alistair's using a lot of different decks, so I'll kind of talk about that as that comes along. Blue Eyes, definitely casual, guys. Sorry. Been curious to do a Blue Eyes video recently. If you guys look way back on my channel, I had a Guard Dragon Blue Eyes deck, but there's a lot, too many of those cards are banned, the combos for that, and maybe I'll get back into it at some point. Shadal's, I'm going to put in Rogue, and I guess you can kind of put these together, I'll say this as one deck, Invoke Shadal. It's just so dependent, I think. Obviously, on your opponent using extra deck. And obviously, Alistair is not exactly like that, but Shadal really is. I don't expect Shadal to affect the format so far. It's too diverse right now. Now, if we're playing in an extra deck only format, Shadal is obviously the legit best deck because it's able to send cards from the deck. But if you're going second and you see your opponent doesn't have any cards from the extra deck on your field and you're just staring down Shadal Fusion in your hand, it's one of the most depressing things in the world, and that's why I think it keeps it from doing that. Burning Abyss obviously got a huge bump with Rusty Bardige. I'm putting this in tier 2. I want to see what it does first. I think there are other decks that are much more explosive, so we will have to wait and see about that. But obviously, this dark.spam deck is going to be pretty good. Cards like Fogblade are less impactful on this format specifically, but still, I think BA has the best chance to win in any given matchup for the most part, other than maybe like Dragon Link or something like that. But you're facing down any control deck, I just think they're very diverse in what they can do, and using resources from the graveyard and doing stuff from the field is just pretty cool. But I don't think it's explosive enough to just start topping tournaments left and right. I think you will see them pop up here and there, though, for sure. Dark Magicians, I'm going to put it above casual. The identity of Dragoon and its ease to get into it more than any other deck. Obviously, most are doing Birdie Anaconda, but you got a card like Keeper of the Dragon Magic you guys have seen. I think it's not going to be tiered or anything like that, but still, I'm impressed with what it can do. And if you guys are interested in Dark Magicians, you can guys check out my Dark Magician Shadal deck that I did, and that's why it's in Rogue 2 along with Shadal's. I mean, these two are also kind of together. It's just you get hand trapped, and it's not the end of the world depending on your hand, but again, most decks are able to fight through hand traps and just kind of go through there anyways. Coming up next is Orchist, and yes, I'm putting Orchist in tier 1 right now. They use Phantom Knights as well, but they're able to amass way more in disruptions and pretty much fight through hand traps. Yeah, if they get Lanciad, it's pretty much GG no re, but I think that's okay for the most part. I mean, you have to open that. I think they're able to fight through hand traps pretty well because they use so many resources from the graveyard. And any given matchup, your opponent probably isn't well prepared to know where those choke points are, except for when you get at the top. You got cards like Dengirsu, obviously, and one card play starters that like no other. So, and they basically got untouched by the ban list, of course, because they weren't doing anything. Now, it could be, this is kind of like a 1.5 for me because they still don't have Heart Pourer, but nonetheless, I think their deck is extremely explosive, and it's so popular and will be used all the time. I think you'll see it represented in Top Cut a lot. Zodiac are going to stay in the, oh boy, it's not casual, it's a little better than that, but I've seen Tri-Brigade Zodiac. I'm still just not there with it. Your extra deck space is too tight with Zodiacs, I think, to splash another engine that's kind of reliant on the extra deck. Well, Tri-Brigades is basically all extra deck, so I'll have to see a little more of it once Phantom Rage comes out, which I'm really excited for. But for now, Zodiac's can just kind of be down there. Another Dino, I'm for sure putting this in tier 1. I feel like it's not being talked about enough. A deck that did not get hit on the ban list, and if you guys saw on the remote duel tournament, obviously they won. Team Samurai won with Dinos. Fossil Dig, I believe, is limited in the OCG, and I think that would have been the proper hit to Dinos here in the TCG, but they can use cards like Pot of Extravagance and still have full access to all the great cards in the extra deck. And you get cards like their boss monster that just is very unique in its form of removal and its ability to just attack all monsters once at 3,000 attack. Quick effect during opponent's turn. It's just unreal. Coming up next is Adamancipators, and losing Black Dragon was really tough. It's just not the choice combo deck anymore. I almost want to put it in tier 2, but still, a lot of their combo pieces too around, Needle Fiber were obviously hit as well, so I'm going to have to see it more, but obviously the power of the deck is just significantly down because they can't search 3 anymore and just keep these crazy combos going. Without a doubt, though, if you don't let them kind of go off, I think they can put up a really good board that will surprise people and be nearly unbreakable. Most Adamancipator boards were unbreakable, but I think they'll be able to put up really decent kind of interaction with your opponent. Definitely a domain lock in the form of Destruction Sword, and probably 2 negates versus probably like way more than that before. He'll still be hanging around. I'm interested actually in kind of using Adamancipators as rogue as soon as Researcher gets reprinted. I'm not spending $150 for that for a deck that isn't even top 2 tier in my opinion. And if I'm not mistaken, this is Dogmatica. If it's not, we'll say it is. Dogmatica is going up at the top, and this card and Dogmatica by itself pure I don't think is going to do anything. Again, I think it's actually really similar to Shadal's in that unless your opponent goes into extra deck, you're not really going to get the true value out of this. Now they have really powerful trap cards, the ability to window your opponent during their turn. Stuff like that can just be absolutely devastating, but given that there's so many control decks I think that are going to be introduced in this format, I think they have a pretty decent chance to take on any deck as long as it's splashed in the appropriate engine. Which can bring me to my next point. Dogmatica Eldlich, I think, will probably be the top represented deck in the format. It may not be the best, perhaps, and I think I'll have to... I want to see some more game footage on how it actually plays out, but to say that Eldlich is not going to be tier 1, I think, is quite ridiculous. And as you guys see, I have 4 decks already. Technically 3. I mean, these are pretty much interjoined at this point, but I do like this because I think we have a more diverse format than before when there was only 2 decks basically at the top, which is really nice. And I'm interested in seeing what people do with combo Eldlich and how that'll change as time goes on. Obviously, you're going to have to put some new stuff in. Jet Seeker and O-Line were pivotal points of Eldlich, but people are already discovering alternative kind of combo for that. So I think combo Eldlich could still be in the format. But like I said, I think Dogmatic Eldlich will be the highest represented. Pendulums are coming up next. We'll just call this Pendulum everything. Tier 2, and that's probably pretty shocking, but Double Iris definitely does move the needle, in my opinion, for this deck. It's a little more consistent, a little more powerful, able to do some crazy things like summon DDD, King Kali Yuga, I think is the name, which basically stop your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And able also to get that, have that joined with an Appaloosa, Borreload, Savage Dragon, other just insanely ridiculous stuff. So Pendulum is definitely back into the swing of things. They don't have cards like Destrudo, but access to Needle Fiber and the ability for Magician Souls to do what it does in that deck is just absolutely mental. And everything else, like, you basically don't have to play hand drafts because you can almost play through most boards, which is pretty cool. So it'll be one of the choice decks of the format. I don't think a lot of people will be playing it because I think people just hate pendulums in general. But those that do and those that take time, because this is a deck that takes a really long time, I think, to be situated with, those people will see success in the meta game. And this is the Gishki monster. I think in the ban list reaction I said it was the one that shuffled cards from the field into the deck. The new Gishki monster that came off the ban list actually shuffles hands, so people are already doing hand loop stuff. And I'm putting it in tier 3 for now because it's pretty gimmicky. Obviously, just the idea is hand looping. And I just think it hard loses, like, if their needle fiber play is stopped, and it's just a little less powerful otherwise. You're not playing really powerful main deck monsters per se, other than the Gishki. But if your combo goes uninterrupted, there's basically no deck that can beat you because your entire hand will be gone. But I think people, like, with cards like Gamma running rampant in the format, I have no doubt that it'll kind of keep its place. I don't really see this expected outside of top 16. If it's even represented that much, I think people hate the deck, so it just won't be seen that much. And here's Infernoble Knights. People seem really high in Infernoble Knights. I haven't seen anything, honestly, that has made me believe that. It's just, it could be over time. Like, you know, they have hand looping, but I've never seen someone actually take all 5 cards out. And, you know, taking 1 is obviously pretty big, but if your board is take 1 card out and Boral Sword or Borreload Savage Dragon, that's good, but is it as powerful as these decks that I have in tier 1? I don't think so. So maybe people will figure out these crazy new combos, and I'll change my mind on this. You have to let me know what you guys think about Infernoble Knights. I'm a little less on it than others. Coming up is, I'm not even going to talk about Lair of Darkness. I don't know why that's there, but Mondolce. Mondolce can go in Rogue. Again, there's just these crazy choke points to the deck, but if you allow it to go off, you're going to see like 60,000 summons being taken at a time, which is pretty darn insane. Other than that, though, I doubt its ability to kind of make any splashes. Although you always kind of see it in these casual tournaments. So I think if you're playing in a non-meta tournament, Mondolce is probably tier 1 for casual. But I'm not ready to put it in tier 3, especially with just how powerful the decks above it are, in my opinion. Next is Melfi's. I guess I'll talk about that for a second. It's the new archetype. It's just casual. It's the cutest deck ever printed, which is pretty neat. But other than that, it's not nearly as explosive. All its effects are at the end phase, which just really kind of deflates the whole idea of playing it. But yeah, it's cool. Who doesn't like Melfi's? Domain. Ooh. This is a tough one because I've been playtesting it a lot. And I did break an Orcus board. So I'm going to put it above Rogue and only put it in tier 3. You guys may think it's Rogue, or it's definitely not casual, but its abilities to work around the like, you have these top meta decks that stop you for special summoning from the extract. That's like kind of the whole thing. And also spell card removal just isn't great. Like, everyone focuses on monster effects, so the ability to use cards like Stormforth to tribute off troublesome monsters like IP Masquerena, you know, and all that kind of stuff helps Monarch slide in a little bit. And we all know the power of domain locking, and I also run the other one that basically negates all effects of monsters that were not tribute summoned, which is like no other deck does it other than Monarchs, which is insane. So I'm actually really impressed with the deck. It's just really bricky, so it can't be more than tier 3 in my opinion unless new support comes out. Ultrageist. I'm going to put Ultrageist in tier... Gosh, you know what? The presence of Harpy's Feather Duster, in my opinion, and I think we're probably going to get some reprints of Lightning Storm in these maximum gold tins, which could end up being the most insane set of all time, in my opinion, with all these insane cards. People are saying Magician's Souls is going to be in there, so if they're willing to do something like that, maybe an infinite permanence on there, it could be even bigger than the Megatins. So there's still so many cards that need way more reprints. So hopefully that gets shored up in the gold tins. But still, Ultrageist, that's really tough, man, to get Feather Stormed, and also have cards like Lightning Storm in the format, triple Tactical Talents even in a sense. If you want to shuffle back like their Multi-Faker, that's just really bad for them, especially going second, and we know they're always going to use a monster effect in the main phase. So if you take their Ultrageist Multi-Faker, that could just spell the doom for them. But again, Ultrageist is one of those decks that if you're not prepared for it and it's not in your main deck, you're guaranteed to lose one, and at that point, if you feel pretty confident, it's a crapshoot going into the other games. I don't know what that is. So Sky Strikers. Gosh, yeah. I mean, I'll keep Sky Strikers in tier 3. You guys know I love Sky Strikers. I love Numeron Sky Strikers, and that deck profile is coming out soon. I ordered a bunch of cards from TCG Player, but some of my cards were missing, which is really cool. And I'm a big fan of when my cards are missing, but at the end of the day, it's still this, like, it's missing power at some point. It needs Engage at least to 1. Engage to 1 puts this to tier 2 without a doubt. Put it to 2 and ban Hornet Drones, please. That would be great. You can even limit Kagari if you give me 2 Engage, and I will make it work. That would be absolutely mental, and the deck would definitely increase to an astronomical amount. Coming up next is Dragon Link, so you know that gets going in tier 1. I almost want to put this in tier 0, but still, people at this point, we know the power of Dragon Link, and I think people are citing mainly for Dragon Link, so the ability to fight through the Nibiru is just unbelievable, and just still put up like a pretty unbreakable board. It's just it's unreal to me. You know, the negates, the domain locks, it's you know, you would think Agripane would be the end of Dragon Link, but in reality it was just the beginning, and it's always been around, but I guess you get cards like Dragoon, which does kind of bring it back up a little bit, because even if you, let's say you use all 4 of your hand traps, something from your hand, and they just have 2 monsters, which is like a Nibiru, which is Nibiru and like whatever, Verde Anaconda, Dragoon, you're left with like, what, 2 cards in your hand and hope that they can break it. One of them probably has to be Dark Ruler no more, and then you have a 1-card combo, so Dragon Link is just absolutely mental. But there are choke points, so I don't think it's necessarily tier 0. Tier 0 to me means that it's topping every event, and that's just, I don't see that happening at all. Salamangreats. This is an interesting one. I'm looking at the decks in tier 3, and I'm thinking Salamangreats are better than that. But no, I mean, I have to put it in tier 3. I'm comparing it to Infernoble Knights and Pendulum and Abyss. It just hasn't lost it. It's more of a control deck now. Its inconsistencies are just kind of insane after all of its bans. I mean, it's crazy to think about how powerful Salamangreats were in its heyday. Even after they got hit by their first wave of bans, to think that it was still so viable. But, you know, being able to have a double attack Access Code Talker is really unique, and that basically no other deck can do. Makes this always a contender to just have a blowback win. But again, without consistency, I can't put it in tier 2. There's no way. Always a fun deck, though. I'm very interested in maybe making a video about that and exploring it myself more. Hero. Ooh, Lord. Is it even? I mean, hero decks are just too expensive. I almost don't even want to talk about this, but it's just not great. It's insane to think that Dark Magicians are better than heroes, and maybe they are. Maybe I'm just like, I haven't played heroes enough, but every single time I play them, I never seem to have it. There never seems to be anything intimidating on the board, other than maybe when they have the one that banishes everything. But if you have one piece of removal, like, the rest of their hand just isn't great, so that's where I'm going to place that. Tenyi, I'll put that in tier 3 as well. It's not quite as explosive as Infernoble Knights or Pendulums or Burning Abyss, but I think it's still a viable strategy, especially if you go for the control type, which I guess is like kind of the main thing. Although I think it fights against itself a lot of the times. You guys probably saw in that duel that I did, it's probably the greatest example of how Tenues is explosive, but also kind of hurts itself by playing these ultra control cards. And if it doesn't set up its board fast enough, which it isn't really able to do too well, it kind of like loses. So I almost think that there should be a more combo reliant Tenyi deck, but I just haven't seen that yet, so I'm going to keep it right there. Let's call it Time Thieves. Let's just call it rank 4 spam. I've seen decks, and I played it on stream as well. The ability to go into Zexal and kind of make this unbreakable board, that's okay. And there's obviously a lot of powerful rank 4s, and I'm sure they're able to go into Dragoon as easy as anybody else, but I don't know. It's one of those decks that kind of like, oh, it surprised me game 1. Let me just side it in, and I'm good to go. So don't expect to see very much of that, if at all. And I don't think too many people are interested in playing the deck anyways. Next up we have Toads. So yeah, I mean, having double Toad you think would be this like fantastic thing, but I'm assuming this is a Paleozoic frog deck as well, and now there's cards like Harpy's Feather Duster that just hard. It's just really bad for the deck. So until I see a Paleozoic frog deck that really blows my mind, I'm just gonna keep it right here. So this is Trap Tricks. I'm assuming this is Dogmatica Trap Tricks. Wow. We haven't seen a lot of it, but what I have seen of it is pretty successful. I'm really thinking this is more explosive than Ultrageist and Salmon Greats. It's just one. It's probably the best control deck of the format without any hits at all. I'd rather have Dogmatica Trap Tricks than Alistair the Invoker. What it's able to do turn 1 and what it's able to do with its Link 1 I think is just so insane. And I did one video with Trap Tricks, and that was with Malefic. So if you guys want to check that out, it's one of my cooler videos I think that I've ever done. So that's pretty neat without a doubt. The next two cards, I'm just going to link them together and just have it be Numeron. So the most normal or represented Numeron deck would be Numeron Eldlich, which is popular in the OCG, but is not popular here. They just banned Zexal, so it was enough of a problem, but it didn't see any play here, and that's probably because we didn't have any events. I think it would have been seen a lot more, but for the time being, I'm going to put it in tier 3. Zexal sometimes is a hard loss for a lot of decks, so without a doubt, it's just a game-winning card. Being able to OTK your opponent obviously is really good, but those prices have dropped like crazy. When I got my Numeron Network, it was $20 at the time, and I think they're selling them for $3 now, so people obviously are a little off on Numeron, but I still think there's a lot of great things it can do. You can go to Appaloosa. If you go Appaloosa set 4, you know, with Sky Strikers, as you guys have seen, or Mega Clops, some of those cards are literally hard, just outs. Like, some people don't have an out to Mega Clops, which is pretty cool. So that's going to do it for today's tier list video, guys. Maybe I'm crazy and putting some stuff somewhere, so you have to let me know about that. But I think this is a pretty balanced list and pretty indicative of how diverse and cool our format is. Other than that, guys, it's going to do it for today. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.